Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our session, Supporting Asian American Youth in Academic and Career Decision Making. My name is Jenny Huang, and I will be emceeing the event tonight alongside my colleagues, Noelle Yu and Tan Fan. We are also joined by our guest speaker for tonight, Dr. Eunice Yuen. Dr. Yuen is a child and adult psychiatry fellow at the Yale Child Study Center. Dr. Yuen grew up in Hong Kong, moved to the US in her late teens, and is now the mother of two Asian American children. She is now the founder and director of Compassionate Home, Action Together, also known as CHATogether, which uses drama vignettes as educational tools to promote emotional wellness and Asian American children, young adults, and parents. Next slide. Also, I would like to take a moment to introduce our team who helped design and put this event together. Christine Ha, Mei Hong, Jacob Kang, Suyeon Kim, and Annie Lin. Our team consists of graduate students, professors, and researchers. Christine Ha will be monitoring the chat alongside Suyeon Kim and Annie Lin. Jacob will also be serving as an actor on the skit. So please feel free to reach out to any of these members in the chat if you have any difficulties or concerns throughout the events. We would also like to give special thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Eunice Yuen, and her team, Neely No, our comic artist, who is here with us today, and Si-Sun Yu, who will also be serving as our actor for tonight.
Thanks, Jenny. Good evening, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon from wherever you guys are joining. Before we begin tonight, we just really wanted to reiterate that the purpose of this event is really not to shame or judge any parenting practices, and rather we are hoping just to open up a conversation and a time of learning about healthy communication habits and strategies that could potentially enrich and strengthen the communication you have with your children. On our agenda for tonight, we will be showing a theatrical vignette that will portray a common interaction between an Asian American parent and their child, which will be followed by a moderation led by Dr. Eunice Yuen and the actors, Jacob and Si-Sun. They will then offer an alternative scenario based on the moderation, and this time will be followed by an opportunity for personal reflections and then a Q&A.
Hi, welcome everybody. So for the Q&A portion of our event, we will be collecting questions via the Q&A feature on Zoom, which is located on your bottom menu. Your question will be anonymous, so please don't worry about having your name attached to your question. One aspect we would like the audience to utilize is the like feature to help us organize which questions are the most popular for the Q&A portion. We will be sure to give reminders about this feature throughout the session so that you can freely ask questions as they come up. We will also be utilizing the chat feature, also located at the bottom menu, for any feedback, comments, or technical concerns throughout the session.
And with that said, we're going to turn over the mic to Dr. Eunice Yuen.
All right. Thank you so much for the kind introduction and for having me tonight. It is such a pleasure to speak with the audience from Boston. And I know many of us are from New Haven, even from many Asia country. And I want to take this opportunity to introduce our co-op organization called Yale CHATogether. Acronym stand for Compassionate Home, Action Together. Next slide, please. We are a community education program for the Asian American families. Let me introduce the calling and mission behind this. I think it is also relevant for tonight's event. We started about 1 year ago and have expanded quite a bit during the pandemic. We realized the unique emotional distress experienced by Asian American families in this difficult time, especially children, adolescent, young adult, and parents' relationship. From COVID cabin fever to Black Lives Matters and anti-Asian xenophobic attacks, we know it is a difficult time. Our program not only aims for education, but also provide a platform, just like what we are doing tonight. We try to unite people in this difficult time. Our program uses interactive theater and other artistic outlets to talk about serious stuff, yet essential stuff, like mental wellness in our family. We are also a culturally sensitive program that tailors to Asian American culture. we introduce a lighthearted way to promote child-parent communication and emotional wellness. Next slide, please. Now we have several arms in CHATogether. Theater arms, where we have our member construct skits using the personal narrative that features cross-cultural challenges in Asian families, which is tonight. We're going to show how it works tonight. We also have public education arm, where we produce flashcard, comics, podcasts that follow the topic of our skits. And tonight, one of our very talented members, Neely No, who is the medical student from University of Toledo, also alumni from Yale University, who has extensive experience in graphic storytelling that combine art and medicine. She created a series of comics that summarize the skit we will perform tonight. And we will listen to her work at the end of this talk. We also have creative study that follow an interesting question from our skits. We also have peer support arm, where we serve as consultation and peer support services in the local New Haven community. Lastly, we collaborate creatively with artists from different disciplines that crosstalk the interface of art, mental wellness, and social emotional learning. Next slide, please. Maybe one before that. It looks like we jump. Yep, this is the one. Thank you. So tonight, we will be using the theater format to introduce this concept called perceived parental support, which is really the question of how would we want to describe the support and comfort provided by your family. Looking at the lens from children, adolescent, young adult, as well as from the parents. So there are mainly two types of perceived parental support. It could be tangible, informational support, such as resources, providing stability, actions. It's more indirect way to provide support. Another type of parental support could be emotional support, expressed as a way of love, empathy, warmth, and concern, which is the type of support perhaps Asian American family are not the common practice in this way to show a support to our children. And tonight we will learn ways how can we do this and practice, we do it together. Next slide, please. So why do we care? Well, there are evidence showing that lower levels of perceived parental support are associated with higher incidence of mental illness, such as depression, anxiety, aggression, and even suicide in college students. Well, that is not the focus of tonight, but we want to point it out as a motivation. We have the reason why we think it is important. And on the flip side, perceived parental support can lead to positive attachment for adult children, providing them a secure attachment so that they can believe in themselves while they are navigating in this confusing time. Not only the confusing time of pandemic, but also being a adolescent young adult is the time where identity are being solidified, such as personal identity, professional identity. They decided what they want to do in the future. Racial identity, such as do they want to identify as Asian American or Asian American, or many others identity that often happen in this age. Perceived parental support also translate into the resilient emotional health and even better academic achievement. So as a parents, we have all the good reason to be aware of the importance of this, and we can do something to foster our children's development and growth at this particular stage in their life. Next slide, please. So one of the tools I want to invite everyone to pay attention is this concept called mentalization. We try to translate that into different languages in Chinese and Korean, and we hope to have more different translation in the future to have more cultural adaptive way to introduce this concept. Really, in lay language, or mentalization is to imagine yourself in another side's shoes. It included elements of being curious, being non-judgmental, thinking through the lens of the other side, and particularly important, using the age-appropriate language. So imagining one of our kids, a teenager, what is it like for them to be applying for college during this pandemic time? It is incredibly difficult. You may be curious about what is it like in their life in this process, not the way of applying your own thinking of what you do in your time, right? So this is some concept I want to introduce everyone to be back of your mind when we are going through the skit and vignette. I think they will be really helpful. Next slide, please. So actually, let me see. So this is, I think, next slide. Can we go for the next slide, please? Yes. Okay, thank you. So we have CHATogether Theater tonight, other majors. So tonight we have a skit writer, which is I want to give a special thanks for CHATogether member who come up with this skit, which is Alan Lee, who is a medical student from Yale University, who is our CHATogether acting director. We also have Kara Beck, who is a master student from Drexel University, who has substantial community theater experience. She is our CHATogether skit production director. Tonight, we have our special guests who are such a wonderful actors. We have Jacoby King, who is a research assistant at Tufts University, who will be our teen actor in the skit, whose name is Kevin. And also we have Mr. Season Yu, who is a pastor in Chicago, who is also Noel's father, and he will be our father actor in the skit. If we can go back to the previous slides, please. I'm sorry, we skipped the last slide. Yep. So tonight we are actually doing something really fun. We are doing a drama vignette that captures Asian American teen parent conflict, particularly talking about academic performance and career decision making. So as we introduce our actors, we want to describe the structure of how this works. First, we have our actors will act out the conflicting scenario. And then I will be the moderator who comes out to process different perspective as the teen and as the parents, what could be changed and what could go wrong. And more importantly, we want to have your audience to be part of engagement. So we want to hear from your feedback. One thing we talk about how to provide emotional support to our children. The first thing would be we want to practice how do we take care of our emotion, which is really not a common practice for many Asian American parents. So tonight we will practice how to do that. And we also have a field poll question to ask audience feedback about the skits. And then we will go back to redo the same skit after incorporating more effective communication skill, leading to an alternative scenario. Now, using a similar structure, we have construct skits in the past that related to COVID-19 family conflict, Black Lives Matters apparently is very conflicting conversation in Asian American family, also LGBTQ coming out in Asian American family, mental health stigma, like what is that like to be seeing psychiatrist or mental health provider for Asian American teen, and intergenerational trauma. So with that introduction, I would like to talk about tonight's skit setup. So the setting of the skit tonight, it will be Kevin, who is an 18 years old Asian American student coming home to his parents after his first semester at Stanford. Kevin has been academically talented and passionate, but also in a way live in the shadow of his older sister, a successful computer scientist at Google. The child wants to make the parents proud, but also wants to follow his passion. Parents, our dad, who is a 43 years old Asian immigrant engineer who is supportive for his child, but also feel that his child need to pursue a career that the parents believe that will maybe make sure have security and making a better salary in the future. So with that set up, are you ready, Dad and Kevin? Unmute yourself and give me a heads up.
Ready?
Yep. Ready. Okay. So everybody, are you ready? I wish we could unmute ourselves and then yay. Okay. Okay. We are ready. All right. Version 1, conflicting scenario. Action.
Hey, Kevin. Welcome home. It's so good to see you.
Thanks, Dad. It's so good to be home.
It's been so long. How's everything going?
It's really great. I love college. I like it a lot.
I mean, I remember when I went to college, I know that it wasn't as nice as the one you go to. I'm so excited for you. I tell all my friends, all the other parents. I mean, I have my second child at Stanford. I don't tell them this, but in my mind, I'm thinking that's 2 for 2. What parent can say that? Both of my kids are at Stanford.
I know. I know your dad. I know you're proud, Dad.
I mean, I just went to Cal State Fullerton for my master's when I came here. Anyways, what classes do you like the most so far?
So I took this international relations class and I actually really liked it. And I'm really good at it. I think I'm going to major in it.
What? Wait a minute. You're going to major in something I don't even know about? This is your first semester in college, and you already have decided on a major, international studies? Wait a minute. I mean, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, well, it's the study of how countries relate to each other and how they like interact with each other. You know, like why the US why they engage in NATO and NAFTA, international trade agreements, stuff like that. It's really cool. Like I could be an ambassador.
I really don't know and understand what you're talking about right now. I mean, what about the things that we've always talked about? Didn't you take any science classes or biology or chemistry?
Yeah. I mean, they were kind of cool. I mean, I did them. They were just fine.
I mean, these classes teach you the fundamentals of how the universe works.
Yeah, but this is the fundamentals of how like the world works.
Again, I don't understand what this is.
No,
I mean, what is international studies?
I know, not like the natural physical, but like countries, nations. It's even bigger than that. I don't want to work at a lab. That just sounds really boring.
You don't need to work at a lab. Your sister works at Google.
That sounds really boring. I don't like doing tech stuff.
So you think working at Google sounds boring? Do you remember the tour that she took us on? She was one of the best computer science majors at Stanford. And during her lunchtime, do you know what she gets to eat? Sushi, among other things. And then if she wants to, she can go rock climbing there. What about that sounds boring to you, Kevin?
Dad, she never leaves the Google campus. That's like where she lives. That's her whole life. I want to travel. There's so many places in the world, Dad.
Of course.
I don't want to just be in the Bay Area.
So how does that have anything to do with your major? You can travel whenever you want when you're on vacation.
Yeah, but I want to make a difference for people.
My thing is, I mean, I'm a little bit confused. I don't even know what international relations is. More so, I don't even know how you're going to get a job with that degree.
Why don't you just Google it?
Not only how you're going to get a job, but how are you going to make money?
Dad, money isn't everything.
Well, you said you can get a job with this because you can be an ambassador one day. Think about it. How many ambassadors do you think majored in international relations?
Probably a lot of them.
No, probably none of them. So how are you going to make a living off of this degree or this
Dad,
major?
I told you, ambassadors definitely make good money. What poor ambassadors do you know?
This all sounds like nonsense to me. What I do know that there's only one ambassador for every country. And I want you to get a good job and make good money like your sister does, have a solid and secure career. I mean, this international relation major sounds much like art history or political science.
Dad, there are a lot of human rights issues in the world that an international relations degree could help with, both here in the US and abroad.
How is that going to help?
With this degree, I'll have a better understanding of how the international stage works and work in nonprofits or international aid organizations or the WHO.
I just can't understand what you're saying anymore. I mean, I wish you can listen to yourself. To me, you haven't said anything. I just want you to do well in these classes, like your science classes, your computer classes, your law classes, whatever it is, and then go to work in a place like Silicon Valley, or if not, then become a doctor. You can help people doing that.
Not really.
Kevin, I'm so frustrated and upset and so shocked that you said this. I can't talk about this anymore. You just got here. We'll talk later.
Okay, so let's freeze. It sounds pretty heated conversation just now, and we want to chat back to our audience. So we want to see who we are in the audience side, and we want to check in how's everyone feeling, as I pointed out just now. Again, we're going to do a few poll question, and again, the answer will be anonymous, but we will share the result of the answer so we can learn from each other. All right, so our first poll question, we want to get some basic demographic. I want to know what is your role. So let's get our poll question. Okay, so let's vote. I am a grandparent. I am a parent. I am a young adult. I am a teen. So you can submit and hit submit to tell us your answer. We give a few seconds and then we can share the answers. All right, so we see most of us are parent. Okay, some are young adult and we also have teen as well and one grandparent. Okay, all right, so next slide, we want to check in with our emotions. All right, so what are your feelings when you come across a similar conversation with your child or with your parent if you are a child? So one could be red, stressed, frustrated, anxious, overwhelmed. Two could be the yellow color, excited, happy, joyful. Three would be blue, bored, tired, exhausted, lonely, depressed. Four would be green, fulfilled, calm, and satisfied. So let's vote. So the question would be, what are your feelings when you come across a similar conversation with your child? So we try to identify the feelings when we are talking with your child about career decision making. Okay. So a few more seconds. Okay, so a lot of red, a lot of frustration, stress, anxious, and overwhelmed. Okay. All right, we will ask the same question after we watch the alternative scenario. All right, so let's get back to our actors, Kevin and Dad. Let's back on the screen. Okay, so sounds like you guys were both pretty upset just now in the conversation, and I want to check in for both of you. How are you feeling? Maybe we go with Kevin first. Tell us about what was going on in the conversation with your dad, and what are your feelings? Just like how we answer the color-coded emotion, and what do you know the emotion come from?
Yeah, I came home from a long first semester in college where it was a new environment, and honestly, I had a really great time. I discovered a major called international relations, and I was super excited to come home to talk to my dad about it. And when I came home to share my thoughts, it seemed like my dad didn't like the idea of majoring in international relations, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. I felt very frustrated because this is how I'm feeling, and I just felt like what I was saying was going through one year and coming out the other, and um I felt like I wasn't being supported, and the feeling came from when I saw my friends interact with their parents. I saw a lot of back and forth where my friends would say one thing and the parents would listen and kind of reciprocate this excitement. And that wasn't the same experience that I had. And so I felt frustrated, like I said before, and some sadness that I couldn't share a true feeling that I had with my own dad.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing, Kevin. And so it sounds like you originally thought like it would be a sharing some excitement you want to share with your dad, but then like it didn't turn out as you wanted, and I hear frustration, I hear sad, and perhaps disappointment from there. Okay. All right. The similar question to Dad. Tell us, like, help us understand what is going on in the conversation, and what is your feelings, and similar question to Kevin.
Well, I am just shocked that after one semester, my son is coming back home so determined and decide and have come to a decision already about what he wants to do. This was not our plan when we sent him to Stanford. This wasn't the career path. Never talked about it, so I'm just really upset. And it's mainly because I just don't think he may like it, but I just don't think he's going to be able to find a good job, not only for himself, for his future family, for his extended family. And I just think that he's just making decisions based upon emotions, not reality.
Okay. Okay. So I sense the frustration as well, the disappointment that that Kevin gave you a surprise and shock that is hard to process right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we started with this we know where we're at right now. Okay. Well, like I am a moderator. I'm not Judge Judy. I want to point out what I observe and want to process what is it like for Kevin in a conversation and for Dad. Okay. So like as we go along from the talk, we introduce the concept of perceived parental support. Really like from the angle from the child, like what you see the support from the parents in this particular important time for you, college student, right? And so to Kevin, like what does the term perceived parental support mean to you? And as a teenager, what is that? What is it for you?
For me, perceived parental support is being listening to what what I have to say, and that doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but just having an open dialogue where I'm able to share my feelings and I can have some sort of conversation where my dad can give me some advice about what I'm kind of going through. I mean, if I'm being honest, my first semester in college, there was a lot of confusion. It was my first experience in a new environment where I was away from home, and going through a conversation like this makes me not want to go to him for future advice. I just felt like with this experience, I felt I wasn't being heard and that there wasn't the open dialogue that I was hoping for and the support that I was looking for.
So it sounds like the type of support you're more looking for, someone who can listen to you, someone who can stay attuned to an emotional need, that like truly open-minded to hear from your experience.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So perhaps it could be important to our audience to hear. So the voice from the child side, that why do you think it is important for you, as a teenager, as a college student, to have this kind of support?
Yeah, I think it's important for two reasons. One is that he's my dad. He's the person that he's one of the people that I'm closest to and I love the most. And so to hear from the person that I love the most that, that isn't open to talking about my interests hurts me and really makes me sad that I can't go to the person that I love the most to talk to about a, a genuine feeling that I have towards my interest. The second reason is this is a big phase in my life where I'm going off to college and it's my first time away from home and I'm discovering who I am, what my interests are, developing new friendships. And so there's a lot going on. And I feel like this is a time in my life where I need the most support, where I can feel kind of at ease when I come home and feel comfortable to talk to someone like my dad.
I see. So that's really important to know, as hear from what you describe. Okay, so back to that. I guess I want to. I'm curious about. I wonder if a similar conversation happened with your parents, like say many years ago when you were a teenager. I guess also we want to point that out, the concept of mentalization too. Thinking through, you're putting in the shoes of a child, imagining you were at that stage. What was that like for you?
To be honest, we never had a conversation like this. To talk about my feelings and what I want to my dad, no. It was what was going to work, what was going to secure a better life for the family, what was going to secure a great job. Feelings didn't really come into account. So I had to do what was going to be most productive, most effective for the family. So that's why I can't understand why the feelings are so important in this conversation. My biggest concern is that feelings aren't going to pay the bills. And I think Kevin is naive. Growing up in this country, I think it's just changed him. And he's just not ready. He doesn't know what real life is.
Okay. So it sounds like the past experience you had, how you were raised, it really leading to another set of value that you think it is important to you, right? Perhaps talking about feelings is a really brand new concept that for you, and perhaps like. And I guess that is no wonder it is hard to have the conversation, and which is what Kevin is asking for, it seems like. And to Kevin, I think like it is a great opportunity to know that you know why dad talk or behave in a certain way, you know where he is coming from, you know, like this, he may have a very different past from how he was raised, and that's why emotion is something new for him, and that may be a new learning from all of us. Okay, so again, like I am not a judge. Just want to point out the observation, and another observation that I noticed is that I sense that that really worry for you, Kevin, for the way that you make decision making. You know, is that, and I guess like for Asian American parent, like worry is a form of care in a way that how they show the care and love to you. I wonder, like, is there any way you want to tell dad, or is there any way you would do differently to express uh your decision making in your career, so that you don't make him be so worried for you? Is there anything you
Yep.
can do? Like, not 100% need to accept what he tell you to do, but you can do something to make him feel less worried for you.
Totally. And I understand my dad loves me more than, and more me and my sister more than anyone in the world. And so what I could do is to help him, come to terms with my interests, are I can do more research into the major and find ways to communicate in a more clear way, and in a way where he can understand that this major can also provide stability. There's a path to success in this major as well. I think in a lot of ways, international relations isn't a major that my parents are familiar with, and so I think if I put in some time to do some more research into the major, and also ways that I can communicate to my parents or my dad, where he can understand that there is a path to success with this major, will make it a lot easier for him to come to terms with it.
Okay, okay. So, so as also want to point to that too, it sounds like it's also a practice of mentalization too. You're trying to use the language of like the way of how he can appreciate, say, international relation, in the way how he can understand. So you're already in that action, you're already thinking in his shoes. So that, okay, that I understand. That sounds good. Another observation I want to point out is that it seems that Dad mentioned about your sister who is a computer scientist working at Google, and it seems like her career is very similar, perhaps in a way similar to your dad, who is an engineer, and apparently she's very successful too. I noticed that you didn't feel too comfortable mentioning your sister. I wonder, what is it all about? Your dad may want to hear about that.
Yeah, I want to first say I love my sister, and I'm very proud of her. She's done a lot in her career that's made her family very proud. One thing that I want to say to my dad is I feel frustrated and uncomfortable at times when he talks about me and my sister and how he compares us to each other. I feel that at times he loves my sister more. And it makes me sad to say that, because if I'm being honest, I feel jealous at times, because I want that support and I want that love from him. And I also recognize that their interests align with each other, and that it's harder for him to come to terms with my interests. But at the same time, I would like that same sort of support and love from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And to that, I mean, like what we talk about, we don't assume that's what you meant when you mentioned when you want to bring up sister. And I want to hear, what was your intention when you want to mention sister to Kevin?
Well, let me first say, just like Kevin said, I love my kids equally, though it may seem different, but different doesn't mean not equal. And me bringing up my daughter, who's already working, who's obviously has gone through college and has a job and so forth, is to show him reality. And I'm hoping that it's not to make him jealous, but it's to again give him a dose of reality, and that maybe it would inspire him and encourage him to pursue sort of a traditional path to security. So I do that not to compare them, but to maybe inspire, maybe challenge him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm really glad we have this opportunity. So Kevin, you know where his dad is coming from. He want to inspire you, show you the example that the success path, it could look like that. But I guess inevitably it might have introduced some hurtful feeling to you. Okay, so for the last question that we want to talk about here, if there is one thing you want to change or you want the other side to change, if we have this conversation again, what would that be? Let's go to Kevin to talk about this.
Yeah, one thing I would change is
What do you want to
my
change if to your dad again?
yeah, one thing I would like to change is I would like to present my my interest in a more in a way where it's not so sudden. I want to do more research into the major and formulate my thoughts in a way that I can present it to my dad, where he can be more comfortable with the idea of me thinking about majoring in international relations rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to major in international relations and that's the end of it. So I think coming in with some more thought would be one thing that I would change.
Mm-hmm. And what do you want him to change if he could be more supportive?
Is that a question to Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin.
Oh, one thing about him is my hope is that we could have more open dialogue where we're able to talk about it in a more interactive way and where I can share some of my interests with him without feeling judged or without feeling like he's pushing me in one direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And to that, like, if you want to do it again, what will you change?
I think
To that.
probably the main thing I would like to change is just for me not to react so quickly and to overreact, and just kind of for me to think through not so much what he's saying, but perhaps what he has been going through to say these things. So I'm just hearing words and not really kind of hearing him. And so I don't like the words that are coming out of his mouth, like political or international studies. And I'm not listening to him. I'm just listening to words.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So are we ready to do it again for version 2? All
Let's do it.
right. Let's do it. Version 2, alternative scenario. Action.
Hey, Kevin, welcome back. It's so good to see you again.
Thanks, Dad. It's so good to be home.
I'm so excited you're here. I mean, I missed you. We're going to do the stuff that we usually do, go out to eat, play some ball, hang out. I just want to tell you again how proud I am of you. I mean, Stanford, 2 for 2. I can't help but to tell everybody.
Yeah, you always say that.
It's true. I mean, why can't I let people know?
Oh my God, Dad, whatever.
Hey, don't pretend you yourself are not proud of where you ended up.
Yeah, college is really fun. I really like it.
That's good. So tell me, what's been your favorite classes so far?
I actually like international relations.
What? Isn't that like a major like political science?
No,
Or
Dad,
art history?
it's more than that. Dad, international relations is like the study of how countries relate to each other on the international stage, right? Like how the US engages in things like with other countries of the world, like foreign policy, when they decide to intervene in wars and stuff like that.
Okay, so you're studying how countries relate to each other. I don't really get that because, as an engineer, I concern myself with things like how airplane wings have the air flowing over an at X miles per hour,
Yeah.
and that's going to create Y units of lift.
Yeah.
And so I get things like that. So yeah, this international relations is new to me.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll explain. So, you know how the air relates to the wings is how the US relates to, I don't know, like Mexico.
Yeah, I just feel like you just said that, and it's not helping me. Give me a specific example.
Okay. So, like the US's decision to create NAFTA,
Okay.
that trade agreement, and how that decision affects the economies of both countries and workers in those countries, and the political ramifications of that,
Okay.
So it's like
So,
studying that. And I think it's really cool and really interesting. And I don't know, I could work as an ambassador
okay.
or an international organization like the WHO.
But how do you feel about the science classes that we suggested that you take?
I mean, they're fine. They're just kind of boring. They're
Hey.
just not as exciting.
Okay. You know that you're going to Stanford like your sister, and she studied computer science, and you know where she's working at Google, and you know all the perks that come along with that, like what she gets to eat and what extra things that she gets to do, like rock climbing afterwards.
I know. Yeah, she's great.
I mean, you seem a little bitter about that.
It's just that you're always comparing me to her.
No, and well,
We're different people.
your sister is very successful, and that's all we want for you, to be like her.
Well, I don't need to work in science to be successful.
I know.
And money isn't the only thing that's a measure of success.
Okay, then. So what makes you happy? What do you consider success?
I consider success as helping people.
So you feel like this major And through this major, you can help more people than what your sister is doing.
Yeah, like let's be honest. Who does she really help at Google other than herself?
Probably the shareholders.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to just help rich people get richer.
I get that.
I want to help those who are less fortunate
Okay.
and help them live better lives
Okay.
and have better income and better everything.
So, I mean, it definitely seems like the people that you want to work for and help are very different from the people that you work for and are helped by your sister's job.
Yeah, exactly.
But Kevin, let me ask you, is international relations something that you really, really enjoy?
Yes, Dad.
Okay, then. I mean, it sounds good to me. I mean, I have to come to the realization that your sister and I are sort of cut along the same cloth, and we like doing the same sort of things, like building things, engineering things, and computer science type things. But maybe you're different. At the same time, I don't know much about this. I don't know what sort of job you're going to be able to get with this. I just want you to, because this is your first semester, I just want you to keep your mind open and make sure you study the other things that we talked about and get different perspectives and get a broad experience. I mean, I still feel like those other fields will give you more security, give you more compensation than international relations.
Yeah, but Dad, money isn't everything.
I know money isn't everything, but money is something, right? I've worked really hard in order to pay for your colleges. I've really worked really hard to provide all that I've been able to give to you. And even money has enabled you to study international relations or go pursue that. I mean, I want to support you. And if this is sort of right now the direction, I'll always support you, even though I don't understand it. But I want you to also kind of understand where I'm coming from. And if I seem a little reluctant or not as supportive, I just want the best for you. And I just don't know much about this.
Yeah,
So make sure you study those other things that we talked about.
all right, Dad. I don't understand either, but I appreciate you being open to it.
Yeah. So again, take those other classes because it's proven it's those kinds of career paths that will provide good income and security. And like I said, yes, money isn't everything, but it's a lot of things. Let's be real. Okay. So make sure you study those other subjects.
That sounds like a deal, Dad.
Okay. So listen, Kevin, I want you to pursue international relationship. That's sort of where you are right now. I just don't want you to be so decisive. Consider the other things that we've talked about always. Okay.
All right, sounds good, Dad.
Okay. That's enough about this. Let's get some lunch and let's talk about what we really need to talk about. Did you find a girlfriend yet?
All right. So that's the end of the skit. And yeah, I wish we could give them did this amazing job, Kevin and Dad. Okay, so we have more poll question for the audience. We want to check in with everybody feelings again, and let's get on to the slide. All right. So what are your feelings after watching the alternative scenario? Again, we have different color. Red is still stressed, frustrated, anxious, overwhelmed. 2 will be yellow, excited, happy, joyful. 3 will be bored, tired, exhausted, lonely, depressed. 4 will be green, fulfilled, calm, and satisfied. Want to check into your feelings. Okay, let's give a few seconds and We see everybody's response. Okay, so many of us become green, calm, fulfilled, satisfied. Okay, so again, it is not a life-changing experience after a skit, but it will be like a good start to have one of the many conversations to follow up with our loved one. Okay, so we want to have a few more questions to get the feedback from the audience. All right, let's get the poll question, the next question. All right, so what do you think are the biggest difficulties in the conversation? You can have more than one checkbox here. So one is language barrier. So it is not uncommon to hear that Asian American family will have the parents are talking in their native language, and then like a child will be talking in English, and somehow they understand each other to some extent. And so language barrier could be one of them. Second would be cultural difference barrier. Three, lack of understanding, communication, lack of attunement of emotional need, ways to express affection, love, and care, generational barrier, or others. So you can check more than one, or you can also share in the checkbox as well. Okay, so it looks like many of the choices are the difficulties, the cultural differences, lack of understanding, attunement of emotional need, ways to express affection, love, and care, and generational barrier. Okay, all right. So next question. Okay. So does this scenario happen with your child and parent? If so, how would you manage the conflict? So again, you can check more than one. Keep harmony, avoid confrontation. Direct confrontation to show your point. Feel confused, frustrated, do not know what to do. Think through each other's perspective, figure out a way to understand each other or others. You can put the answer in the checkbox. All right, so we have a lot of them using thinking through each other perspective, figure out a way to understand each other. All right. Okay, next question. All right, so to parents, imagine a conversation that you are talking with your parents many years ago, perhaps when you were a teenager. How did you like it? Did you like the outcome? Yes or no? We only have yes or no question, but I want you to imagine that picture on your mind. It is a way to practice mentalization, thinking your role in the child's shoes. What was that like? Did you like the outcome? All right, so we have 50-50. Some like it, some didn't like it. Okay. So this probably a more open-ended question. It needs some time to reflect upon. So but I want to start that thinking going as we go on the question. Okay, last question. All right, so let's have that. What advice would you give to the parent in the scenario? So again, the same answer. Keep harmony, avoid confrontation, direct confrontation to show your point. Feel confused and frustrated, do not know what to do. Think through each other's perspective, figure out a way to understand each other, or other ways that you can put it in the chat box. What would you suggest that in the scenario to do? All right. So a lot of advice will be thinking through each other's perspective, figure out a way to understand each other. Okay. All right. So I pass the time to the team. So that will conclude our skit session. So we have more reflection activity with our team. All right. I pass the time to you guys.
Thank you, Dr. Yuen, and just thank you again to you and Dad and Jacoby for giving us this really great medium to just continue thinking and having conversations around this important topic. And so one thing that we really wanted to create for all of you is just a space to reflect personally on just kind of seeing this scenario play out. How may it have been different for you in your relationship with your parents? And so in whatever way works best for you, whether that's just thinking to yourself, taking a break and being like, I need to step away from this, or kind of engaging in the chat or journaling, please feel free to use this time to just kind of think through what has just happened. And we hope that you would continue this conversation and these reflections after the session, but just following the skit and this moderation, I'm sure there's a lot going on in people's heads. So here are just a few questions that you can use to guide this reflection time. So which parts of the skit did you feel was more beneficial for the child? which parts of the skit did you feel was more beneficial for the parent? And if you do want to just reflect personally on your own relationship with your parents or children, that's great too. So I'll just play some music in the background as we have this time. And it'll be about 5 minutes. And I'll just send out in the chat a 1-minute warning so I don't interrupt anybody. All right, I know that time was short, and we really encourage you to continue these conversations and thoughts later with whoever you feel comfortable. And just before I hand the mic to Jenny for Q&A, or sorry, to Tan for Q&A, I just wanted to say I really appreciate seeing in the chat people being so open about their experiences, and we just want to, I guess, acknowledge that each of you come in with your own experiences and stories, and that all of which are valued and valid during this time, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, great job, Dad and Kevin, for the wonderful skit. So right now we would like to move into a time for the Q&A. We have been collecting the questions through the Zoom feature. Please feel free to add any additional questions as they arise. We will also get through as many questions as we can, and Dr. Yuen has offered to answer any questions that we do not get addressed tonight. So our first question for tonight is,
Tan, I can go ahead and read it if you'd like on the Q&A section. It reads, many of us on this call are type A parents with high expectations of our children because we want them to have good lives filled with opportunity and stability. These very expectations create tremendous pressure for our kids. How do we reduce placing this pressure on them without feeling as if we're being bad parents for not encouraging them to reach their highest, safest potential?
Wow, I appreciate that question. Yeah, so I also welcome for Dad and Kevin to answer the question too, like getting a perspective from the parents and also perspective from the young adult teenager side. I would imagine like there's no perfect parent in the world. We only have a good enough parent to do what we can with what we have to provide to the best to our children. And that's like I'm a parent myself too, so like I am trying to manage that, take that balance like in my daily life as well. And I feel like especially for Asian American family, like, we were raised like in such a conflicting role in the parents, like how we were raised with a different set of cross-cultural expectation. We were raised from our last generation of parents. That expectation could have been quite different from the expectation we want to our children, or the children nowadays are expecting themselves, and that perhaps there are some discrepancy there. And I mean, like, I'm not here to provide any solution to any of that, how to make it work, but rather, I would like to recommend a way to how to communicate this expectation in a more healthier way. So which is, I think, like I go back to the concept of mentalization, imagining what does that feel like to your children at this time point. Perhaps this is the year of pandemic, this is the year of what they are growing up in United States, that could have been quite different from what we put the expectation coming from us. So thinking through from that lens will be a really good starting point to have that conversation. And as you are building up that bonding and you're thinking through from their side, they also be able to sense that too. So it is the matter of one of the many conversations we have, building upon mentalization. So this is like no perfect answer. I thought I could give you a perfect answer, but at the same time, I think like for parents who are wondering that question, I want to give validation to you too, like give you a pat on the shoulder. It is not easy to be a parent, to have the expectation you want the best in the world for your child, but at the same time, you don't want to be putting so much pressure to them. And so I think like I wish we could form a parent group together, like among all parents are sharing this feeling. It is not easy to be a parent, to have such a conversation with your child. Okay, next question.
Yeah, I'll read the next question. So, what would you do in a situation in which you feel that your parent is not as self-reflective, contemplative, self-aware as the father in your skit?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, we can provide some skill techniques in the fact sheets we are going to provide to our parents as well. So we are bringing up a point that for any kind of meaningful conversation between a child and a parent, we need to pay attention to our mental state as well. So saying that, like, we need to be in a reflective state so we can really be open-minded, to be mentalize each other. What is that like going through from the other side of your child? So we put up like that. There are a few techniques. So one would be really, we need to check in our own emotional state, such as like our color-coded emotional check-in. Like, what is that emotion that you're feeling at the moment? And what is that realizing where is that emotion coming from? And also, how do we regulate it? like if like some of our parents are like, oh, we are like stuck in the traffic on the way home, like preparing a dinner, like we are all stressing out, your child is stressing out, we're not going to have a meaningful conversation in such an important conversation, in a way be able to reflective. So I think like staying attuned to our emotional state and trying to regulate that state would be a way to go to start a meaningful conversation there. So I'll provide that concept in the fact sheets that can share with our parents here.
I can read the next one. I think this one's, I feel like a lot of parents are asking with younger kids. It's, my daughter wants to be a YouTuber. What should I do?
Oh, interesting. I don't even know what that YouTuber would do. Like, that's interesting. I think like the first thing that we do, like I guess like back to the mentalization skill, to be curious. Like I know like my first response would be, what is the YouTuber? Like, what does that do? I want to be curious but not judgmental, to say no, don't be that, but like want to navigate this process with your daughter, perhaps. Like, what does that do? Why are you so interested about it? Maybe you will find out something else from being just a YouTuber, maybe something else that's more fascinating to her.
I'll read the next question. It reads, do you think the society is stereotyping Asian parents as tiger parents? I personally know a lot of parents from other races who I believe are more tigerish than myself. What's your opinion on that? I don't think it's a racial issue, but a socio-economical issue.
Oh, wow. So this question, perhaps it could be beyond the scope of this event, but like I offer my opinion about it. Like, I mean, um, I guess like many Asian American parent, perhaps many other minority race parents could potentially being labeled, or they think themselves they are raising really high expectation to their children. And I mean, like for many variety of reasons, like one could be really obvious, could be like we are viewed as perhaps model minority. We are, like easily being expected to strive much more than, typical American people. And perhaps like we are being, labeled or stereotyped as a tiger parent. But in the end, like I still give the same answer. There's no perfect parents in the world. There are good enough parents in the world that we want the best to the good enough resources for our children. I think that all that matters. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. What if your child wants to go into a career that they realistically do not have the aptitude or talent for? For example, be a professional singer when they do not sing the correct notes, or be a professional athlete and they are bench warmers on the school team.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So that could be another spectrum of thinking about that. Like, so it sounds like you want to support your child, but wondering how realistic could that be? So I think like, again, like, back to the curiosity and not judging. Want to perhaps like that's the time to navigate a path again, like want to see why your child want to be in that certain career. Like, is there any way we can navigate some of the training session to be a professional athlete, or any, and perhaps like at the end of the journey you may discover something else that like would inspire your child. So again, like the role will be supportive. You don't have to 100% to accept what it is at the moment, but create a welcoming, warm environment for your child. So he or she will go to you for questions.
Thank you. And we have next question. I have a white friend whose daughter is studying theater at Harvard. She always says, what is your backup plan? If the daughter says graphic designer, she says, a graphic designer makes this amount a year. You spend this amount of money. Can you get by on what a graphic designer makes?
Oh, wow. I also believe this question is perhaps beyond the scope of this event. But I would imagine like that would be if there would be someone who have been successful in the path, like one way would be good to identify certain mentor in the career field. If someone who have been in this career, perhaps like they could provide more resources to guide the right direction or things like that. So again, like I'm sorry, this is like really beyond the scope of this event. So I wish I could have a better answer for that.
Okay, so we have 2 more questions that hopefully we can get to before we have our closing remarks. The first one is, my daughter wants to be an art teacher. Later, she changed to a marine biologist. Now she doesn't know what she wants to be. How to deal with her changing ideas?
Oh, wow. So, okay. So it sounds like there's some worries about the changing, like and I think like having changing of career, like it is the time of adolescent, young adult is the age of really, like what I mentioned, is solidifying the identity as a professional career, as a personal role in the society, and many others. So it is a really fluid and confusing age, and so I think like really like as a parent, I want to conceptualize that, highlight that point. Perhaps like you are not the one telling them what to do, but perhaps like you want to be the best friend in the journey to guide them, so that like you don't need to 100% agree what they want to do, but you can be with them, so they will go to you for question. So I can sense like your worries, like from the career decision from one way or to change to the other. But I think like you being supportive next to your child and be able to stay attuned of what the emotional need. I can imagine like you worry for your child, and he or she must be really confusing at the moment, and she need your emotional support at that moment. So he or she is confused, but you are with them, so they are not feeling lonely at the moment.
Okay, for the sake of time, we have to move on to our closing remarks. Thank you all for such a great discussion. And as a thank you to the audience, our team has put together a fact sheet that includes information about communication styles and resources for navigating difficult conversations you may have with your children or your parents. It is available on the Let's Talk website for your download. So we will post the link in the chat once again. I'll hand it off to Noelle.
Great. So really quickly before we end, we also wanted to make sure that our amazing graphic artist, Neely, had a chance to share with you all a little bit of this piece that she created for this session and for this idea around perceived parental support. So she will take it away from here.
Thanks, Noelle, for the really lovely introduction. So as Dr. Yuen said earlier, I am a medical student and I joined CHATogether as a graphic designer, and I also help with research. So for this conference and this subject, I was kind of thinking about what medium could be a good way to kind of get across the information we wanted to get across. And I thought something visual could be really useful. And since I've always loved drawing and I've always loved art, I've really been interested in this field called graphic medicine, which uses comics and graphic novels and art to kind of share health-related experiences and information. And this is part of CHATogether's public education arm. So I created this comic based off of the skit that you just saw, created by Alan and Kara. And the comic that I created really just wanted to highlight the main struggles that arose from that conversation you heard, and about the child choosing a major out of the golden trifecta of business, law, or science. So you have the dad making fun of the major. In the second column, you have the dad comparing our protagonist to her sister who works at Google and eats sushi and rock climbs after work. And then you have this common tension of priorities between the parent and child, like financial stability and career prestige versus what the child's own interests are. So that's kind of the overall snapshot of the comic. And if you go to the next slide, I also wanted to kind of embed teaching points into the comic as well, where I highlight different aspects of the comics that reflect communication methods that we want to kind of teach that can help with communication. So the first, yeah, there you go. There's 3 teaching points in the comic, and each of them talk about different communication strategies that you can do to kind of speak with your parent, with your child more. They talk about the ideas of mentalization that Dr. Yuen talked about earlier. And the goal with the teaching points is it allows you to kind of reread the comic with these teaching points in mind. And you can hopefully get something new out of rereading the comic every time. So the overall point of this comic is it's a visual disseminator of information. And hopefully it's in a way that's fun, it's relatable and engaging, but also in a way that's educational. And that's kind of how we're interested in using this idea of graphic medicine. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Neely. These are really amazing, and I hope you all have a chance to take a look at them later. Really quickly before we end, because we are counting down the seconds now, we wanted to make sure that we gave a big thank you and extended our gratitude towards Dr. Joe and Dr. Juliana Chen, just for being such a great support with this event and helping us with all the logistical pieces and getting it all together. Also the Let's Talk design team that helped us with our fact sheet and even these amazing slides. The CHATogether team who really helped bring this skit together and worked with Dr. Yuen to make something that would be really meaningful for this time that we had together. Neely, of course, for making that amazing comic. Alan and Kara for writing the script. And also the MGH Center for Cross-Cultural Student Emotional Wellness, which is where a lot of the resources from our fact sheet are coming from. So, and the biggest thank you is to all of you for coming and spending this time with us, because, you know, this is a really heavy topic. All of you all are coming in here with your own experiences, and we're just so grateful for you all coming in here and having this conversation with us and thinking about these things.
Yeah, and again, so we are so thankful that you all could join us tonight, and we hope you enjoyed having this experience with us as much as we have enjoyed sharing this with you. If you would like to stay connected with this conference, and we hope that you do, here are some future events that will be happening soon. So the next webinars in January are supporting Asian American and Pacific Islander family members, caring for differently abled youth, which is for parents and caregivers, and also Psychotherapy Inside Out, a webinar for both students and parents to help demystify psychotherapy and talk about what it is and how it works. So we hope you can join us. We also want to announce the launch of Let's Talk professional conferences for educators and clinicians. Continuing education credits will be available. Details and registration will be announced after the new year. So visit our website for more information. So thank you for coming. Visit this website for more information and details about our events throughout this year. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming tonight. Really appreciated this time that we were able to spend with you. And thank you, Dr. Yuen, for helping us make this happen. Really appreciate it. I hope all of you have a good rest of your night before the week starts.
Thank you all for coming.
can stop the
I-
recording, right?
Yes.